Welcome in to Seahawks Today, powered by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here with you. So glad to have you with us on today's show. We have the latest Seattle Seahawks news and rumors as Pete Carroll has high expectations for this Seattle Seahawks team. We'll break that down, as well as some practice squad additions, and the team captains have been revealed. All that and more coming up in just a moment. Before we do, we are in a battle with Dolphins today to get to 30,000 subscribers. First, they've cut into our lead a little bit. Guys, we got to pull up ahead a bit. We got to add on to this lead here, folks. It's Will Scott's birthday, the host of Dolphins Today, and I would love nothing more than to give that Summer of Jones hater a bad birthday and extend our lead here on Seahawks Today. So subscribe to the channel now for never-ending Seattle Seahawks news, rumors, trades, free agency, and everything in between. It's all in one place with watch parties and live shows each and every week as well. Subscribe to the channel now. It is youtube.com/SeahawksTV to join what we're doing each and every day. Let's begin with Pete Carroll. The Seattle Seahawks head coach had an interview with ESPN, and he talked about the expectations for this Seattle Seahawks team in 2022, and let's just say his expectations are pretty high. He says that he thinks the Seahawks should be a 10-win team again. Here is what Carroll had to say exactly. I don't feel like that at all, referring to a rebuilding year. I don't feel like any part of that is what's true, other than the fact that that's what people think. I'm not in the business of that now. I'm in the business of helping these guys get ready to play with all of the work that we do and all of the mentality and the culture and the environment that we're in. We've been averaging 10 wins a year for the last 20-something years. That dates back to his time at USC between 2001 and 2009. You think I could get anything different than that? I don't think. I don't see any reason my expectations should change at all. And this kind of mindset, this mentality, it reminds me of where I went to college. I went to the University of Kansas. And, I'm a big Kansas Hoops fan, right? And Bill Self all the time says with that Kansas basketball program that players change, but expectations don't. And when you're at powerhouse college football programs or basketball programs, that's kind of the idea, right? Well, this is the National Football League, and the Seahawks went through some major changes. I think that expectation is a little high, granted, where this Seahawks team is, but as a head coach, you're supposed to have confidence in your team. What are you supposed to say? So I don't hate it at all that Pete Carroll said that he expects this team to be a 10-win football team. I just don't think that's realistic necessarily. So, prediction time. If you think Seattle will win 6 or more games. Let's bring down that number a bit. If they win 6 or more, go ahead and like today's video. If you think it's less, tell me why it's less. Like today's video if you think the Seahawks win 6 games or more. If not, then comment and tell me why. So let's look back at the track record for Pete Carroll in his stretch in Seattle. You go back to 2010, and they went to the divisional round with a 7-9 record, back-to-back 7-9 seasons from 2010 to 2011. 2012, they went 11-5 going to the divisional round. That was followed up by the Super Bowl championship in 2013, where the Seahawks went 13-3. Of course, the year following was the infamous Russell Wilson pass in the end zone that resulted in the Seahawks losing to the Patriots after a 12-4 season. 2015, they went 10-6 going to the divisional round. 2016, back to the divisional round with a 10-5-1 record. And then 2017, after making the playoffs for a while, they missed it with a 9-7 record. And then the last 4 seasons for the Seahawks, 2018, a 10-6 record. 2019, 11-5. 2020, 12-4 in the wild card round. Then last year, they missed the playoffs at 7-10. So you can see Pete Carroll has had a really good tenure with the Seattle Seahawks. But the truth of the matter is that I'm not necessarily sold on Pete Carroll as the long-term option beyond this year, beyond looking ahead to the future here. Look, the track record for Pete Carroll, what he's done the last several seasons, speaks for itself. But when you look at this thing going forward, I have my doubts, and I have questions just like many of you do. And one thing I want to point to, and let me explain this a little further. is what Warren Sharp had to say in his football preview, and I highly recommend you checking this out if you haven't done so already. Warren Sharp does a great job breaking down every single team in the NFL, and here's what he had to say about Pete Carroll and the coaching staff there in Seattle. Compared it to Groundhog Day. Listen to this. Groundhog Day, one of the most pointless holidays on the calendar. One of the funniest movies of the early 1990s. Watch it if you haven't already. If you have, you know the plot of the movie. A cynical TV weatherman finds himself reliving the same day over again when he goes on location to the small town of Puxatawny to film a report about their annual Groundhog Day. For the Seahawks, what they relive is the same cycle with every offensive coordinator since Russell Wilson came to town. The boss, that's Pete Carroll in this example, tells the new offensive coordinator to run, so he does. After year one, he begins to throw more because he's got Russell freaking Wilson at quarterback, and passing is more efficient in general. Soon thereafter, he is fired, and a new offensive coordinator is hired. Rinse, repeat. So, here's what this all means. To kind of break this down in the simplest of terms, it's a great analogy from Warren Sharp. And offenses have evolved, but Pete Carroll hasn't. Look, we are seeing in today's NFL that teams are passing more than ever before. And I get it. You got Geno Smith or Drew Lock potentially as your quarterbacks this year. Geno Smith will start week one, but there's a chance we see Drew Lock later on in the year. But even with that said, you still have to trust your quarterbacks enough to pass the football. And building towards the future, when the Seahawks bring in a young quarterback, whether it's a Bryce Young or a C.J. Stroud, whoever it may be, I'm afraid that the game has passed Pete Carroll by, that he is too committed to running the football as opposed to passing the football enough and being willing to pass the football on first and second down. That's my fear with Pete Carroll. He's done a great job with this Seahawks team to bring home a Super Bowl title and all of that. But I'm afraid that the game has passed him by because we've seen that where they've moved on from offensive coordinators because Pete Carroll wanted to force the run game when that wasn't their best option when Russell Wilson was there. Sure, Russell Wilson's gone, but thinking ahead towards the future in this franchise, you have to be a pass-first offense to be successful in the National Football League. And that's what I worry about with Pete Carroll is that his agenda going forward with this franchise is the wrong one compared to where the rest of the NFL is headed. So, your chance to weigh in. Do you believe in Pete Carroll long term? Not just talking about this year, but moving towards the future. Is he the guy, the right man for this team going forward? Let me know in the comments section. Type Y for yes, type in for no. Sound off in the comments. Let me know one way or the other if you believe that Pete Carroll is that guy. Y for yes, in for no. Couple practice squad updates for you on the Seahawks as they have added to this practice squad to extend it to 17, and the Seahawks are allowed extra space on the practice squad because of Aaron Donker, who's a part of the NFL's International Player Pathway Program, which is for guys basically a substitution for college of sorts, you know, giving them that extra time to get acclimated with American football. And a couple of the names that were added for the Seahawks include outside linebacker Joshua Onujiogu, and also on the list includes defensive end Jabari Zuniga. Let's start with Joshua here. He was undrafted out of Framingham State, which is a Division III school, had a strong training camp in preseason, also had a sack in the final preseason game versus the Cowboys. So good to see him sticking around after having a very impressive couple of weeks there. We'll tell you more about Jabari in just a second, but before we get to that, got a great deal that we are offering Seahawk fans on BetUS. As we've got your game, you can get a 125% deposit bonus when you use the promo code Seahawks125 at checkout. Go to chatsports.com/bet, whether you want to bet on NFL games or college football games. They have you covered every way in between. You can also bet on the Monday night game. Lines already open for the Broncos and Seahawks matchup. as the Broncos are favored by 6.5. The over-under set at 42. Get your bets in now if you want to put in your money on the Seahawks as an underdog at chatsports.com/bet. Promo code Seahawks125. That's Seahawks125 at checkout to start saving today for that 125% deposit bonus. So let's tell you more about Jabari now, a 2020 third-round pick out of Florida, and spent a couple seasons with the Jets. Not a whole lot of playing time in those 2 years in New York. He's played in 11 games over the last 2 seasons with just 1 career sack. So we'll see if he can impress the coaching staff and potentially find his way on the 53-man roster when it's all said and done. Speaking of the 53-man roster, I look at the practice squad, and there's some good guys there, in particular Bo Melton. Bo Melton, a wide receiver who the Seahawks picked in the 7th round out of Rutgers. He's a guy that comes to mind that I think very well could find himself on the active roster at some point this year. Who should get called up from the practice squad? Who's a name that comes to mind for you on that Seahawks practice squad? Let us know in the comment section who should get that call up and go up to the Seahawks active 53-man roster. Team captains revealed for your Seattle Seahawks. Now, these are more than just guys going up for the coin toss. These are the leaders of this team as seen fit by their teammates. And the list includes on defense Quandre Diggs as well as Al Woods on the defensive side of the ball. Those guys get the nod there to lead the defense. On offense, Tyler Lockett, the veteran that's been there a long time, very worthy of this spot, will lead the offense as the offensive team captain. Then special teams, representing that group, is Nick Bellore, the do-it-all special teams player. We'll see him at fullback, linebacker, special teams, and everything in between. Very deserving of that nod there for one of the team captain spots for your Seattle Seahawks. We appreciate you joining us, as always, here on the channel. If you made it to the end of the video, that means that you're a real one. And, you know, my dad was in the office yesterday, and he was telling people like Tom Downey and others that they were real ones. So I guess the real one thing is catching on around here. So the real ones, we appreciate you. Spam real one in the comments if you made it to the end of today's video. As always, you can follow me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, everything in between. You can follow me at Tyler Jones Live. That's the easiest way to connect with me there. The show never stops on social media as we're talking Seahawks all the time on those social media platforms. We'll see you next time here on Seahawks Today.